thank you so much for jumping on the podcast today and listening to this episode on connection killers. We're going to expose one thing that will put a wedge or poison our communication and our connection with some of the most important relationships in our life. You know, in a world that has a really just a buzzword called boundaries, when we don't actually understand what that means in a healthy, appropriate, spirit-led life, I think we can have the tendency to say, oh, I don't want to have any conflict. I want to avoid any problems or any tension. So I'm just going to set a boundary, in which in some cases is completely appropriate. In some cases is healthy and necessary. However, I think sometimes we can use that word as an excuse to avoid hard conversations. And those hard conversations, when done right, and when having Jesus involved in the conversation, is going to bring growth to yourself, relationally, spiritually, emotionally, even your emotional intelligence. This is something that God will give you the opportunity to grow in whenever we have conflict, and that we shouldn't avoid things by just saying, oh, I have a problem with this person, I'm just going to set a boundary and never go after the real root issue, which oftentimes we may be surprised at the outcome. So this isn't an exhaustive thing on what boundaries should be or when we should put them there or how to go about that, but this is just exposing one thing that can poison our connection with some of the most important relationships in our life. Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Live at peace with everyone. I know that it's saying as far as it depends on you. It's not possible to live with peace with absolutely everyone on the planet, right? But it's saying, have you done your part in a conflict? Have you done your part to say, hey, I have come in with humility, I've come in low, I've done what I needed to do, and I can walk away from the situation, whatever the outcome, with peace, because I know that I've done what depends on me in the part that I play, right? So again, thank you for jumping on. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Here you go. Hey guys, sorry if the quality of this doesn't sound the best. I am commuting right now in the car, like you may be listening to this podcast. Thank you for jumping on. But I just wanted to share my thoughts about just this one thing I feel like the Holy Spirit keeps highlighting to me, because I am absolutely a practitioner of this and not a perfecter. But I think sometimes we can get in trouble with our assumptions about other people's motives. And I'm not talking about the type of motives that are obvious in reflection with people's behaviors that you need to put a healthy boundary around. Like if someone is having really bad behavior, drugs or alcohol consumption, and you are struggling with that and you're in recovery, you don't need to be around that group of people. If there's like some physical or verbal abuse that's blatant and obvious, set your boundaries. But I'm talking about the type of assumptions that we can get in trouble with, which are just the regular everyday offenses with our peers, with our family, with our spouse, maybe even with the Lord, that you think that you have made up your mind about what their mind is made up about, if that makes sense. And I think that can steal away the opportunity for connection a lot of times, because we don't give people the benefit of the doubt or the opportunity to share their heart with us. And a lot of times it's not because they are not trying to not share their heart. Is just like you and me. Everybody can get nervous about communication. Everybody can get nervous about how they're going to be received. And in that comes off either just a lack of communication altogether, or you get into self-preserving mode or defensive mode. And anytime somebody gives you feedback or saying, hey, can you kind of clarify what you meant about this? Immediately, the porcupine sticks go up on your back, and you're just trying to protect yourself all the time instead of actually having the goal to connect. And so I think when we assume things about people that aren't necessarily true, we take away the opportunity to connect. Again, I say that again. So, and I think that that's not the type of relationships God desires for us. I think God's desire for us is to be one, totally connected in unity with Him, that we are not having false assumptions about His heart towards us, that He is somehow withholding from us, that He somehow doesn't have plans for our hope and for our good and for our future, or that He is, withholding some type of truth or some type of blessing to teach us a lesson. And once when we finally get good enough, then He'll give His whole heart to us, which is not true at all. God has provided His entire self, His entire essence, His full Holy Spirit through the work of Jesus, and His life and His heart towards us, and the work of the Spirit that is living in us now. The same Spirit that Jesus has, we have access to. That same Spirit lives in us now. He's not withholding something from us. He's not trying to hide Himself away to punish us in some sense. But I think when we, in the other way, assume those things about other people in our offenses, and we never give them the chance to communicate, or we never even think to ask, hey, what did you mean by this? Or can we have a conversation, because my goal is to connect with you and I want to better our relationship. I want to better our friendship. I want this to be healthy. I want this to be full of love. I want there to be, just to clear the air, If we just decide in our hearts that how someone's going to respond, that how someone is going to think, act, or talk to you, then you are not getting the full picture of God's redemptive plan for family and relationships and friendships. And so I just encourage you, it's going to take a whole lot of bravery, a whole lot of humility. Yes, humility on our own parts to say, oh, what I've been believing about this person, about what they thought, and then I thought, he said, she said, is actually not true at all. That in reality, there's actually a beautiful picture and opportunity waiting for both parties to say, oh, we're actually on the same page, or, oh, we actually want the same things, and I'm not your enemy. I'm actually here for you. And we have just been on two different wavelengths. And I believe that the Holy Spirit, when humility is in the room, Holy Spirit does His best work in each of us to say, hey, can we be a little flexible? Can we serve one another with pure hearts and pure intentions, and not have to think that we've got to protect ourselves all the time? So I'm just going to shut this person out. I'm just going to end things there or whatever. But no, I really think that once we have this default in our mind, our default isn't everybody's a hater, but our default is, hey, maybe there's a grander story here. Because the truth is that sometimes when you have those conversations, you might not be met with a positive reaction or with humility from the other party or whatever. They might actually not be for you, or not want to connect with you, or want to end the relationship, or prove themselves to be right, or whatever. And you have to be okay with that being a possibility. But I can tell you that it is so, so worth it in the conversations that I have had to say, oh my goodness, let's clear the air. It's actually, everything's okay. We've actually been wanting the same thing for a long time, but both of us have been too scared to actually talk about it. And this is something that, again, I am a practitioner of, that I am faced with this opportunity all the time to make sure that my heart is postured in a way that is not holding on to a secret type of bitterness or offense towards people, that I can really open up myself to allow people in that way. So if this was encouraging to you today, if this made sense at all, if this kind of spoke to right where you're at, I hope that, you just start the conversation with the Holy Spirit of saying, hey, how does this activate in my life? How do I do this? Would you help me? Would you give me bravery in my communication? Would you just give me an opportunity at the right time and with the right tone and with the right words, be able to approach this subject with the people around me? So I hope you're encouraged. Thank you for listening today, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.